The Florida Panthers make it a game against the Carolina Hurricanes with mostly AHL players. We ask, what is Grigori Denisenko's future with the organization, and what is Paul Maurice's approach towards the next two preseason games?
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into this Thursday, September 28th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I am Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. So, Cats fans, the Florida Panthers are through 3 preseason games out of 8, so almost at the halfway point. And as of this recording at 1:44 p.m. on a Thursday, we are 14 days away from opening night. Grigori Denisenko days away from opening night, which we will get later into the show. And if you're a Panthers fan out there, we are going to continue posting the link to ranking the best Florida Panthers, best players to ever put on a Florida Panthers sweater. We will start that content next week, going five players per day to discuss who is the greatest Florida Panthers player of all time. But let's get right into the game on Wednesday night between the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes from PNC Arena. The Florida Panthers did have morning skate in Coral Springs before flying, so they flew the day of the game and just came back that same night. So it's going to happen quite a lot during the preseason, during their away games out early on. I'm assuming they're going to be doing that same thing before their game in Orlando next Tuesday, because they did it 2 years ago where they had morning skate and then they flew their mid-afternoon flight. Likely won't do that for the Nova Scotia game, for the Kraft Hockeyville game on Sunday, but likely that's going to be what the travel schedule is for the Florida Panthers. But through 40 minutes, the Florida Panthers had a 1-0 lead against the Carolina Hurricanes. The goal that Jerry Mayhew got on the power play for the Panthers, an open lane to the net. Brett Pesce comes in to try to block a shot, but then it redirects his off his stick and into the net. But for the Panthers, let's even before that goal, the Carolina Hurricanes and the Florida Panthers really had a hard time settling into this game, giving up a lot of shots. Spencer Knight was sharp early. His lateral movement was great, reading off of feeds, cross ice feeds really well. There was one specific stop that he had on Perlini very early on into the first period. So Spencer Knight looked sharp in this one. Played the whole game in this one, and for Spencer, you're not going to put really anything of the blame on this one. Stopping. How many? Let me check how many shots he stopped specifically. He went 27 of 30 on the night against the Carolina Hurricanes. But the really of for Spencer, the rebound control was there, and when you think about the first 13 minutes of the first period, the 11 shots on goal that he faced, 4 of them being on the PK. The Panthers were trapped in their own zone, but still he stood tall. And then once the Florida Panthers got that goal by Jerry Mayhew, the Florida Panthers only allowed 1 shot on goal the rest of that period. So the Florida Panthers were really starting to settle down. As far as other players who stood out for this one as well, Skylar Brindamore, playing right in front of his dad, taking a picture with him prior to the game, just coming off of a national championship with Quinnipiac, and then facing his his teammate in Yaniv Peretz, who came into the game midway through for the Carolina Hurricanes and all. It's tried a between the legs goal, had quite a few, had a chance between the legs. Spoke about it after the game, how he didn't think it was that quality of an opportunity right in front. But great story, and he's going to be facing off against his dad's team on Friday once again. So pretty cool that we are going to be seeing this. Other players who did impress: Brett Ritchie got a few opportunities right in front. There was a one-timer chance that was stopped by Antti Ranta. Was great to getting the retrieving the puck in the end boards. Alexander True got him a setup right in front, and also was tied with the Panthers in hits for this game, along with Casey Fitzgerald. So the physicality was there for the Florida Panthers. Yeah, they were outpossessed. But despite being outpossessed, the AHL Panthers who played in this one versus mostly regulars for the Carolina Hurricanes, they were getting in front of pucks, and even though the Carolina Hurricanes were living in the slot more often than the Panthers were, the Carolina Hurricanes took away the middle of the ice. I'm just looking at natural stat trick for Wednesday's game. Whew, it's a big discrepancy in slot opportunities that the Carolina Hurricanes had versus the Florida Panthers and all. So, and Brett Ritchie, going back to him, I thought that the Florida Panthers should have had a power play when Brandon Lemieux went to the box for goalie interference, and then Brett Ritchie went to the box as well for roughing. I mean, and Brandon Lemieux is one of those players that is really hard to like, honestly. If you ask Brady Tkachuk what happened a few years ago when Brandon Lemieux was on the Kings, yeah, you look up that rant on YouTube. What Brady Tkachuk had to say about it. And Matt Kiersted, I thought he had a great game as well. He was jumping on into the rush as well. His stick was in great position. He didn't get lost in his own zone. John Ludwig had three blocked shots on the night, and there's a lot of key ones on the penalty kill as well. So, and there was a sequence where William Lockwood had two opportunities in the same shift and was quick to retrieving pucks. I mean, we spoke about this during the conference final that both the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes were more of the opportunistic bunches as far as getting their shot qualities when it comes to scoring opportunities. Not a high possession team, not like the run and gun Florida Panthers that were back in 2022 for when they won the President's Trophy. But as far as 5-on-5, which this game was spent a lot on the PK, with the Carolina Hurricanes going on the power play 4 times, the Panthers twice, even though they got a score there. But 5-on-5, what the Florida Panthers had, you can't be too upset about the result tonight, last night for the Panthers. I mean, 38-32 Corsi 4 percentage, 50 almost 55%, and throughout the playoffs, I mean, I believe Carolina was at like a 47% clip, but they were still very opportunistic on their scoring chances. The Florida Panthers were in the same ballpark around there during the postseason. And without Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov is still recovering from his ACL injury, and Dmitry Orlov did not play for the Carolina Hurricanes. And of the 3 goals, which because the Carolina Hurricanes scored on an empty netter towards the end of the game, really you could only really put one on Spencer Knight. The second one where Ryan Suzuki got the puck at the end boards, basically walked towards the front of the net. Spencer Knight commits low. There's opening up high, and then Ryan Suzuki goes high. Probably misread that one a little bit as Spencer Knight for that one. But the one on the power play where Nason got the goal, that was just beautiful passing from the Carolina Hurricanes on that power play, and really it was going to be really hard to stop that shot by Nason. And Michael Bunting, the 2-on-1 that the Florida Panthers had, then 3-on-1, and then Michael Bunting breaks it up and goes 3-on-1 the other way, and it's really hard to for the Carolina Hurricane for Spencer Knight to stop that 2-on-1 that the Carolina Hurricanes had. So really, the Spencer Knight without him, this score is a lot worse. And he was the story of the game for the Florida Panthers. And you got to feel good about Spencer Knight coming into the regular season. Still, there's nothing as far as confirmation on what his status is going to be as far as making the opening night roster, being waivers exempt. But if we see him play to this level of the first two games, you know, you can make a really good argument of him making the opening night roster. We still have not seen Anthony Stolarz in a game. We likely will see him in maybe the game on Friday against the Carolina Hurricanes, or the Kraft Hockeyville game on October 1st against the Ottawa Senators. And Paul Maurice did say that the goalies will go a full 60 the rest of the way, so we don't have to worry about the midway point of the game and then another goalie coming into the game. So that is what Paul Maurice's approach is there. But in segment number 2, we are going to discuss more about other players who did not do so well in last night's 4-1 loss for the Florida Panthers against the Carolina Hurricanes. We're going to discuss that more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about DoorDash. Are you missing the syrup for your pancakes or just ran out of your favorite coffee creamer? With DoorDash grocery delivery, you can get what you want right when you need it. Love the convenience of getting what you want right at your door? With DoorDash grocery delivery, you can stock up for the week or order last-minute cravings conveniently. Burnt your last piece of toast? Avocado's gone bad? Or the hot sauce bottle empty? Try grocery delivery from DoorDash, or you'll get everything you want delivered when you need it, right to your door. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get grocery delivery that actually delivers too. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll find it the best in your neighborhood and boost your local economy with each and every order. You'll get exactly what you ordered, or we'll make it right. So sit back, enjoy quality groceries just like you picked them yourself. What more value? You'll save on all your grocery and restaurant favorites with the $0 delivery free on all eligible orders with the DoorDash membership. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order, up to $20 value when you use promo code LOCKED at checkout. Limited time offer. Terms apply. That's 50% off up to $20 minimum subtotal and 0 delivery fees on your first order when you order on the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter promo code LOCKED. Don't forget, that's code LOCKED for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. Segment number 2 here on this Thursday, September 28th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Thursday. And the line of Kevin Stenlund, Mackie Samoskevich, and Grigori Denisenko, the Panthers, you know, when you're going up against a team that's more NHL regulars versus what the Panthers had, there are certain expectations that come. And Paul Maurice even spoke about, which we'll get more about his perspective later on in the show about how he's approaching the next two games. But nothing for him. It's really about what kind of habits can they create, and what the Panthers are doing as far as committing to listening to coaches and communicating with teammates. That's really the biggest takeaway that he wants when it comes to training camp. It's not all about results as far as game points, you name it. I mean, Mackie Samoskevich getting 2 goals in the first one. And again, it's also really about the players you play with too, as well. But the Stenlund, Denisenko, Mackie Samoskevich line, Corsi 4 on 5-on-5, out 5 to 15, 25% in 10 minutes and 31 seconds of 5-on-5. And the only opposition on Wednesday to outshoot the other was the Dalpe, Brindamore, and Lockwood line, which, once again, William Lockwood has looked great through the first 2 games. Skylar Brindamore with showing off his speed for someone who's huge. He's really big player on the ice. So is Kevin Stenlund. Kevin Stenlund, he looks just bigger than anyone else. A really strong forechecker for the Florida Panthers. But as far as Grigori Denisenko, just as really doesn't stand out in as far as what he brings to the table. I mean, Denisenko, 5'11", 186, and he's 23 years old. And he was drafted just 5 years ago. It's been 5 years for the Panthers. It's and with Grigori Denisenko. Spent a lot of his time with the AHL, called up a few years ago, called up during the 2021 season, if I'm not mistaken. But hasn't played much, even with it, and he's battled injuries in the AHL. I mean, took a shot off his kneecap and finished the game even. So toughness isn't an issue for Grigori Denisenko. He plays above his size. But as far as Wednesday and the doubleheader, you don't see him getting you see him getting beat in his board battles. You don't see him out muscling other guys. But you also see when he does get behind that he's a little too stick happy. And that's a result of going to the box twice in Wednesday's game. So, and that line, we talked about the Corsi for percentage, but shots for and shots against, the opposition had 9, they had 1 total throughout that whole game. And there's different elements, and there's 3 different players as well on that same line in Stenlund, who's not the fastest skater, Mackie Samoskevich, who is a incredible on his edges, and Grigori Denisenko. For him, the question is, what's next for him? Because he's on a one-way deal. And I asked the question on X, does Grigori Denisenko make the opening night roster? And last time I checked, actually, I haven't checked that since last night. And I believe like over 55% of you guys said that he does not make it the opening night roster. But the way I phrased the question was, does he make it? And a lot of you guys said no. But I'm actually looking at it now. 91 votes. 91. 70% say no. 30% say yes. But it's the question. I should have phrased it differently. Should he make the opening night roster? And if you don't have the whole, oh, he was a first round pick, oh, you're trying to salvage something out of him, then you're likely kissing it goodbye, honestly. But yeah, that's not Bill Zito's draft pick. It was Dale Talon's back in 2018. And the thing is, if you're to trade him now, there's not much value there. And for a guy if you were to put him on waivers, you're risking losing him for nothing. But I mean, another example, look at Jesse Puljujärvi when he was traded to the Carolina Hurricanes, only traded for a 3rd round pick. And he was playing on the same line as Connor McDavid. And he's a 4th overall pick. Grigori Denisenko, not drafted as high. I don't even want to throw out there what his value is, but it's not a 1st round pick nor a 2nd round pick if you were to try to trade something for him. And a few years ago, during the President's Trophy winning season, when the Florida Panthers were evaluating their biggest trade chips, Grigori Denisenko was up there. Owen Tippett was the first one, as the Florida Panthers eventually traded him for Claude Giroux. But there isn't much value there for what you can get back for him. And question is, does he? I still think he does, honestly, because I think there's going to be a little bit of stubbornness from the front office as far as trying to make something happen for the Panthers. And we spoke about last offseason or last preseason. How many times are we going to talk about last chance for Grigori Denisenko? And he has 2 years on this current deal. So as far as what he brings to the table, the expectation level is got to be a lot lower now for me, and I'm sure it's going to be for you guys as well listening. And just and what if he were to make the opening night roster? How many games does he even play? It's going to be really hard to envision at this point in time him playing more than 60 for the Panthers. Hell, even 40. He's going to be your 13th forward. But at the same time, you need that opportunity to see what you got as well. He's going to get his games. They're likely going to play him a lot early on just to see. But there's a lot of concern there because we spoke about these low-value contracts that you need to bank on in order to continue your championship window. Lindell, Mackie Simiskevich. And I know Spencer Knight's making 4.5 this year AAV. But even that's a pretty decent deal for what his trajectory could be. But Grigori Denisenko, man, it's really hard to envision that for him that it's going to be that all of a sudden it's going to change. I hope I'm wrong. That's the thing. I hope I'm wrong about Denisenko as far as that, because he had a great junior career. And yeah, it's hard to adjust to North American ice. Yeah, there's COVID as far as season being lost in Charlotte and having to merge with Syracuse. But also a lot of players lost time to COVID. The OHL didn't even have a season. So I can't even use that as an excuse for him. So what's it going to be for him? And I'm not very optimistic. He's going to continue getting his games, but it's going to be interesting to see. We saw him early on on the same line as Barkov, but is that going to continue being a thing? I'm going to assume that the top line is going to be Barkov, Verhaeghe, and Rodriguez, or Reinhart on that right wing for now. And I don't think we're going to see Denisenko there early on because we're still looking for that consistent right wing piece for Barkov. And it's been a revolving door for years. Last time the Panthers had that was when Barkov was on the same line as Mike Hoffman and Evgeny Dodonov. So it's been a while. Yeah, Anthony Duclair has had a little bit of time, but he's shifted up and down the lineup. But we haven't had that consistent piece on the right side. So not very optimistic right now at this moment in time, but I hope I'm wrong, and I hope Grigori Denisenko changes my view on it, and these next few preseason games are going to be very telling as far as that. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to discuss more of Paul Maurice's approach towards the next 2 preseason games before the Florida Panthers wrap up the preseason. We're going to discuss that more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Third and final segment here on this Thursday, September 28th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So we're going to play a little clip of Paul Maurice on what he had to say after the Panthers 4-1 loss against the Carolina Hurricanes on Wednesday night.
Yeah, it was better than expected in the first. I think our legs caught up to us a little bit as the game went on. So you know what? I'm not really looking at these games to tell us where the Florida Panthers are in terms of their game. This was an opportunity for almost everybody that's trying to make the handful of spots that we do have available to make their case, right? That's what today is. And the same will be Friday night, and the same will be Sunday up north. And we won't draw too hard a light on the game, but I would say just about everybody made a case. There's some good cases. There's some cases that weren't great. So these guys will have a chance to rebound and kind of get a little better with it. But it was good.
Yeah, and that's part of the clip of what Paul Maurice had to say. If you want to see the whole media availability, you can go on the Locked On Florida Panthers YouTube channel, which we will be bringing you media availabilities from practice, post game, morning skates, etc. And we are on track for 600 subscribers on the Locked On Florida Panthers YouTube channel. And yeah, that's the approach for the Paul Maurice. Also spoke about how the regulars will likely not be playing in until next Tuesday on October 3rd, when the Florida Panthers face off against the Tampa Bay Lightning at Amway Center in Orlando. And for the Panthers, even before, let's talk about the regulars. Let's actually talk about the power play. Let's talk about it. Finally, we have an opportunity to chat about it. And Barkov and Bennett did not practice on Wednesday nor Thursday. Thankfully, with a later recording time, Thursday, that we get an update on 2 practices worth of content for the Cats. Barkov had a little bit of an illness. Paul Maurice said he was going to rest. Sam Bennett had an injury in the Panthers' doubleheader game, which minor injuries, you're not gonna push someone too hard as far as forcing in order to make something worse. So it's minor, nothing of concern. We're likely going to see Sam Bennett back. But Carter Hagee spotted with a white practice jersey, not that gold non-contact jersey that Paul Maurice said that he could be in on Monday and Tuesday when he spoke about it with the media. But the power play. This is what the power play looked like without Barkov on power play 1. Eetu Luostarinen, Evan Rodriguez, Sam Reinhart, Matthew Tkachuk, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So what will it be likely? OEL, Tkachuk, Sam Reinhart, Evan Rodriguez, Sasha Barkov. Likely, Barkov is going to be on the right wing. Evan Rodriguez is going to be on the left. Tkachuk being that net front presence, and Sam Reinhart being in the bumper position, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson being the quarterback. And it's going to be, I'm actually excited to see how OEL conducts a power play. And yeah, I'm sure Coyotes and Canucks fans have a lot to say about that. But as far as the veteran presence coming in, and without your 2 star defensemen who are out, this is a good substitute for it for the time being. Power play 2, which, by the way, Eetu Luostarinen was on both units. So it gives us an indication of who's going to be that next man up if there is an injury for someone who happens to play on power play 1, which honestly, I would not also mind seeing Carter Hagee on power play 1. Give him that opportunity, because the way that guy scores, especially with the fire of a wrist shot that he has, and he's ranked as from The Athletic, he's ranked up there as far as, I believe he's like tier 3 players right now in the NHL. And the Shayna Goldmans, the Don Luszczyszyn, excuse me. He's an analytics darling, Carter Hagee. And the only knock that bring him to another tier is lack of special teams time for him. And just imagine how many more goals this man can get if you give him more power play time. And he's just a beauty to watch at 5-on-5. But power play 2 is going to look like Carver Hagee, Anton Lundell, Etelus Theranen, Mike Riley, Gus Forsling. That's what power play look like on Wednesday. But with Sam Bennett out right now, you're likely going to see Sam Bennett in place of Mike Riley, even though Mike Riley, as far as the little sample size we see, Mike Riley was quick to getting the pucks towards the net from the blue line. So, of course, with a chip on his shoulder a little bit, only playing 10 games, being bought out, this is also that great opportunity for him to make an impact on this team, which, again, just going back to what I said in my post game of the first 2 games, the Panthers have good problems on their hands, and this is once again reinforcing that when you have Etu Lusterranen jumping in power play 1, when guys like a Barkov and a Bennett are missing a little bit of time just for rest and recovery. So it's continuing that argument for them. So the Panthers, we're not going to see that in the next 2 games, but the real indication of that will be starting next Tuesday. And like we said earlier, Paul Maurice is going to give them that. They're still going to be on the ice. They're still going to be pushed. They're still going to be tested on their conditioning as well. Not as hard as the first 4 days, but you are going to see more of what Mo is going to do structurally with the regulars. And these next 2 games, Friday night against Carolina and Sunday against the Ottawa Senators in Nova Scotia, that is more of what the younger guys are going to look to prove as far as guys who are trying to make the NHL roster. So gonna be exciting, and we're gonna be back with you guys on Monday discussing both of those games. We are going to take tomorrow off due to work conflicts and all that stuff, but we are going to take tomorrow off from the podcast, and we are going to come back here on Monday to discuss more of the Panthers 2 games and maybe discuss more of other players who might make a case for making the opening night roster. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.